Golf, the sport of choice of the upper class, played on posh green fairways, surrounded by beautiful hills, beautiful landscape, and absolutely stunning clubhouses. The memberships cost a lot. It is a select society that participates in most of these, but is there something more to these golf clubs than meets the eye? What if I were to tell you that there are multiple, and I mean multiple, golf courses around North America that were built directly on top of ancient indigenous mound sites? Just to name a few, we have Miami Whitewater Forest Golf Course in Ohio, Northmore Country Club in Highland Park, Illinois, Jackson Mounds in Jackson, Mississippi, Clear Creek Golf Course in Carson City, Nevada, Indian Mound Golf Club in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. Then we have Bell Park in Kingston, Ontario, Koshkonong Mounds Country Club in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, Blackhawk Country Club in Madison, Wisconsin, and Mound Builders Country Club in Newark, Ohio, just to name a few. The official narrative with many of these golf courses is that they had no idea that they were building them on top of these mound sites, and it was only as they started to dig or start construction that they uncovered burial sites or ritual mounds. If the only reason they discovered that these were mounds is because they dug into them and started carving them out, what if there are still multiple golf courses around the world that have simply not dug into the mounds yet and just use them as the aesthetic and challenge of the golf course? The narrative for most golf courses around the world simply could be that they built up these hills for the challenge and aesthetic of the golf course. But what if we dig deep enough into the construction narrative of these golf courses and find that these were already here before, and this landscape does not match the natural surrounding area? That is exactly what we're going to be looking at today as we dive into Pointe West Golf Club in Amherstburg, Ontario, Canada. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump right into it. This is Zach, aka Bo's Freak, bringing you another old world investigation video here. And as you saw in the intro here, we're going to be looking at Pointe West Golf Club here in Amherstburg, Ontario, my hometown. As you saw in that little slideshow that started off there, we have some mounds from around the world, more specifically in St. Louis, known as the Mound City, which goes back to all the ancient indigenous cultures that lived around in North America at the time, and St. Louis being one of absolute profound standing. I believe there's upwards of 40 million people that lived there before the Columbus and the colonizers came over. It was an absolutely massive city of mounds, which these indigenous groups strived and lived on. So I'm going to show you another little picture here real quick, just for context, so you can understand what we may be looking at when we look at these mounds, or suspected mounds, at Pointe West Golf Club here. This here is a photo of Teotihuacan in Mexico City here, before it was discovered to be what it truly is, which we will show you in a minute. As you see, this looks like a nice big hill here. We've got some grass laying over it, some bushes, and all that good stuff growing on it. Another one off in the distance there to the right. But once they dug into it and uncovered it, this is what was discovered to be laying inside of this. Would you take a look at that? That is a massive, massive pyramid right here. 1900 just looks like a giant hill, little mountain of sorts. In 2020, as we see now, once it was uncovered, we were talking a massive pyramid which had some quite intricate designs on it, dragon faces, Mayan symbology, made up of countless amount of bricks. I do believe there's another photo here for it. I think it might have skipped it. There it is. As you can see, a little more detail here of just the stone brick and the precise amount of bricks it took to build this magnificent structure. Obviously, none of the hills and mounds we're going to be, suspected mounds we're going to be looking at today
really size up to what Teotihuacan is here. But just for a little context of what is inside of these mounds that we don't see, just like in those intro pictures there. And we will go back and look at this one here as well for you. This is one in St. Louis, I believe. Sorry if I am wrong, but, you know, we just have these grassy mounds. We put some stairs on it. We're allowed to go look at it. It's nothing really spectacular when it's given this context here. No one is really in awe when they drive by it or are extra curious about the history of our area. They just think, you know, we're looking at a dirt hill. Just random dirt thrown on it. And that's that. Really cool. Indians did this, you know. The clothingless, barefoot, horse-riding Indians, but I really don't believe that is all they were. That is the official narrative that we are given. Just like Hollywood spins their stories all throughout today's day and age, cowboys and Indians was the exact same thing once you dig into it just a little bit there. So, you know, looking at something like this, we could very easily be looking at some sort of structure like this under it. So, now that we have a little information here about what mounds are, what lays under these dirt piles, let's dig into what I suspect can potentially be an ancient indigenous mound site here in Amherstburg, Ontario.
Alright, so here we are now, walking up to this hill that we grew up biking on and sledding on, which now, looking with the eyes we have, tends to resemble a pyramidal structure, if this is not a man-made hill specifically made for this park. It's pretty high up, as you can see. Videos don't really do justice on the size of these hills that we have at the golf course, which is just right over here. And then the slope on this. And as you'll see in the bird eye view that we'll bring up on Google Earth, it is quite perfectly shaped and horseshoe lipped. And as you go down here, you have another perfect little slope that goes around, which maintains the pretty much exact same degree of slope. So we walk down here just so you can get an idea of what we're talking about here. Nothing crazy, but in the context of this maybe being mounds connected to the golf course, quote unquote hills, they did a lot of clearing out here. I wonder what's going to be going on. Clears out right into the golf course, actually. So we're going to take a walk over there after, but just so you can see the size of this a bit as we're in the 0.5 camera view. And I'll be putting up on the screen here the height differences from sea level to the top of this hill, just so we can get an idea of the incline that we're dealing with here, with what I believe is one of the biggest hills, mounds, whatever it may be, attached to this golf course.
Alright, so here we are now on Google Earth with that bird's eye view I was talking about here. And just once again, this is the screenshot from that intro there in the thumbnail. This is the neighborhood that surrounds the golf course here, which I just so happen to live in. And just looking at this now, this looks like some sort of like ancient lettering, does it not? That could just be a coincidence in the way it was developed in accordance with the golf course itself, but nonetheless, I find it really special and very intriguing considering I live right in this area and we got this Arabic-esque ancient language it appears. So, but it's neither here or there. Just a very cool thing that I found here. Maybe it is here and specifically there. So, anyways, like I was saying, right here down here is where we have this hill that we are looking at here. At Schodeller Park, is it called? Schodeller Park? And as you can see in the bird's eye view here, it's pretty interesting shape we got here. Near perfect, like a horseshoe-esque shape with that little ridge coming off here. And I couldn't find any information on if they added this hill when they were developing this park. It is just a small little park, but this Schodeller guy here, he was involved within the development of this golf course itself. So he was the one who granted this land, or would put his name behind the his name and his money behind the construction of this little wee park that we have here. But nonetheless, this hill, it would make sense if it was already here before they made it, as it is right next to some pretty massive hills, which we will look at in the next clip, attached to the golf course here. Can't really tell here on Google Earth, amount of hills, but It is just rolling hills as far as the eye can see when it comes to this massive, massive golf course. So let's play that next clip for you guys right now.
All right, shout out to this path. Not sure what's going on with it in context of the golf course and the park here, but get a better shot of the hills we're dealing with here. The mounds, if you will. That is quite large. That is very large. And from what the research that we have done, they said this was all here before. Matter of fact, they removed 400,000, was it square yards, cubic yards of dirt while constructing this. And this is just one small section of it. We're talking 18 holes. Each hole usually 500 yards long. Wish I had my other camera on me. But you can just see way in the distance there, more of them. It's really beautiful. Yeah. It's something spectacular, that's for sure.
So now to speak on some of that construction there, and more specifically that 400,000 cubic yards of dirt being removed during construction, I found this article here on the 25-year anniversary in 2014 of Pointe West Golf Club, and down towards the bottom is where I really first started to get some information that really piqued my curiosity. As you'll see here, down at the bottom, oh, we already passed it right here. Brady said that 400,000 cubic yards of dirt were removed from the property during development. And the water is still pumped from the golf course from the Detroit River through a pipe under Highway 18. That is a lot of dirt to be removing. If anything, if they were built mounds and built hills, you would think they'd be bringing in dirt of that size. But they were removing a fuck ton, and still we see this massive, massive amount of rolling hills, which just hints even further towards this being a ancient mound site. So then I went to ChatGPT here, and my God, may I say, for research, AI is fucking money. This is my first time digging into anything using AI, and it's given my tool going forward with it. They say they brought in the internet to control us, and it ended up turning on them, being a weapon for us to discover the deceptions, and I think AI is the exact same thing. So I asked AI here, aka renamed the archivist, my good pal here, and asked him to bring up some information about the construction and what was going on here beforehand. And as we see here, course described as a link-style layout that weaves through old-growth timber in the gently rolling land of Old Anderton Township. This suggests that the existing natural undulations of the landscape were incorporated into design, aka these hills or potential mounds were already here beforehand when they were constructing this golf course here. See furthermore, therefore, some of the mounds and hills you may have seen may have been augmented or constructed to serve a specific purpose within the course layout, which we are not discrediting it at all. We can definitely see that as, they do use these as strategic features to it. This was very fascinating, which I've never heard about before, and I live right down the street, and I used to work at this golf club, matter of fact. Although it's a very short stint, I never heard about this, and I couldn't find anything when I was looking at the history of Pointe West until ChatGPT here was able to dig deep enough online and find this. Additionally, historical records indicate that prior to Pointe West's development, the area was home to the Spring Hill Golf and Country Club, a 9-hole course operated in 1931 off the second concession of Anderton, which is where we have Pointe West is located. The history of golf in this area further supports the idea that the land's natural features have long been utilized for the sport, once again reiterating the potential for all these mounds and hills already being pre-existing before the golf course was constructed. What's interesting about this being here in 1931, or starting in 1931, now this is just pure speculation here. If there was nothing mentioned about this golf club here before Pointe West was built, maybe there could potentially be some sort of a shady history with Spring Hill Golf and Country Club. 1931, we're still a little quote-unquote rugged and definitely in the midst of covering up history. Look at all the wars taking place around the world and destruction of the old world history. Maybe they knew there were mounds here and they started to desecrate them, or this is when the cover up of it, potentially officially on a on the status of bringing public into that area, began. That is just 100% pure speculation and could be completely wrong, but I do find it interesting that I haven't found anything or learned about Spring Hill Golf and Country Club right next door to me in all of the 20 plus years that I have lived here. This is something I will be bringing to the Historical Society in Amherstburg here. Go see if they have any information on it. If not, go visit the Parks and Recs department of the town there and see if they can bring up any records or history on this, because nonetheless I am very curious to learn about the history of our area and understand the surroundings here. I do believe that's all that I brought up with ChatGPT here. Yeah, just sort of reiterating exactly what we were talking about there. So very fascinating, and just more evidence that these were already here before, and definitely when it comes to the removal of 400,000 cubic yards of dirt, I think we can say, essentially without a doubt, that at least 90% of these massive hills and rolling mounds that we see in this golf course were pre-existing before construction began. Now, I may have said the biggest hill was that first one that we looked at there. That was a part of the park right next to the golf course. But as we look at the clubhouse here, right smack dab in the middle of Pointe West here, we see the clubhouse lays on a massive, massive hill or potential mound here. These photos don't really do it justice when you see it in person. So I do have a few more photos here that we've collected here. I really like this one, how it really emphasizes the depths and the rolling of these hills here with the setting sun here in the south. I got one more here from a bird's eye view here. As you can see, this is the clubhouse right here, and this is the mound it sits on here. As we see off in the distance, just a bunch more that just layer the whole entire road here. There's about 7 right here that I walked upon the other day here, and these are at least 12 feet, 15 feet from the ground level here high, and they just scatter this entire landscape, as you see, as far as the eye can see. And if you recall the picture of the thumbnail there, this is that one little triangle piece. So this is just a very small fraction of what this entire golf course entails. And like I said, these mounds and rolling hills are just absolutely everywhere. So the thing is, with this golf course and the location we are in Amherstburg, it is quite the profound history here. Amherstburg is the site of the War of 1812. We are like essentially where it started. We have this whole monument thing down by the water in Navy Yard Park, and we have our very own Star Fort down there, which is fascinating in its own discussion and research, which we will get into, which ties directly into what I'm about to show you guys next, which is the Detroit World's Fair. This was directly across from LaSalle here, which is right butt next door to Amherstburg, where we see the mounds, and this took place in 1893. And if you guys are familiar with the World's Fair and the suspect history behind those, this will definitely pique your curiosity. You know, we were just casually constructing massive castles here, and as you see right here, we have Fort Wayne, which, as per the official historical narrative goes, before it was quote-unquote constructed, there was a massive mound right next to it, one of the biggest ones discovered in North America at the time, and they absolutely desecrated this thing and just hucked the bodies and all of the indigenous artifacts into the Detroit River. It's an absolute vile display of evil. And as you'll see with this Star Fort here, or one more photo before here, this is just an artistic interpretation of the Detroit World's Fair here. And like I said, just absolutely massive castle. And you know how these World Fairs go. We build this stuff, and they're all made of chicken wire and paper mache, so that's why they don't last, even though we have these things standing for over a year. And then we destroy it all to the ground and flatten it, and we never see anything like it ever again, even though these are supposed to be expeditions of what the future is going to be bringing to us. But, you know, we never see that. Detroit, right across from Amherstburg, everybody. All my local friends and family here. This 1893. 1893. Come on now. But as you see here, the Fort Wayne Star Fort. right next to it. These are their own discussion, as I was mentioning, star forts and their potential role in being batteries of sorts for free energy, which would perfectly tie in with my theory for what the Detroit River was, which, like I mentioned in the Rockland Falls video, we will make a whole separate video about that in the specific teardrop-shaped islands that are scattered across the Detroit River here from top to bottom that created their own canals and simulate and look exactly like we do see around hydroelectric dams. And to sum that up real quick, these islands and all that were created to make specific currents that would generate power and power these hydroelectric dams. So that all ties in with my theory with these star forts. But as you see, this is built up on a massive mound of its own here. This could just be the artistic interpretation of this, making it seem more grand than it was, which goes for all these photos. We are not seeing the actual ones here, so this is all artistic interpretation, because when we do look at where'd it go? Let's exit out of this real quick. We should have the next Fort Wayne star fort photo in here, but we do not, so let's just bring that up for you real quick. As you see, this is Fort Wayne right here that we are looking at. It is very low to the ground compared to what we saw. In fact, it seems like it's buried a bit into the ground, so rather it was taken down a bit, or this is actually exactly how it was, then we'll take it for what it is. But we'll take a look at it here on Google Earth for you and just show you exactly how close this is to where we suspect these mounds are at. Another interesting fact, which I'll insert the clip at the end here, where we started this video, I had the ducks and all that, we have the Indian graveyard right here where the chief of the Wyandot and the Huron is buried right here. And it is its own very moundy-esque landscape there. But as we zoom out here, you will see golf course here. And we just come on down this way a bit. We have Zug Island. And right here, ladies and gentlemen, the Fort Wayne Star Fort. This being the site of the Detroit World's Fair, which is absolutely in shambles now, essentially. We just got factories and the complete destruction of Zug Island here. And this has its own interesting history. We used to have this thing in the area called the Windsor Hum, and there's documentaries on it. People in Windsor, it's hard to hear this weird humming and buzzing noise, which was at the time abandoned Zug Island. Just considering that we had the World Fair here, the Star Fort, this ancient indigenous mound, it's very interesting to think what was maybe taking place on this island. And is it potentially a man-made island? Because as we see, these canals are perfect around it, and it just sort of seems to stick out and be its own thing. So absolutely fascinating stuff. What is going on here, ladies and gentlemen? What is the real history of our land? And what can we discover together as we dive deeper into the official narrative? So if you guys made it all the way to the end here, I want to thank you so much for coming along with me on this journey as we investigate Pointe West Golf Course and all the other anomalies in our surrounding area. I know we are just getting started on this research, and I hope that you guys continuously enjoy it as I enjoy doing this myself. And if you have any other suggestions or any things of curiosity too, feel free to share them with me. I am here for it all. So I'm going to leave you with one last little Easter egg treat here since you did make it this far. When I was going up the sidewalk here, I found on the mound, or the hill, a nice little fairy ring forming here. The perfect little green ring around the grass here. And as we zoom in, I got a little better shot here of that. And I thought that was really cool. That was just on me about to get home, and I was just thinking and pondering things, and then I looked right under this tree, and we have a fairy ring, which was sort of an omen to me to continue going on with this, and that we potentially may have discovered something here. So I thought that was really cool, and just wanted to share that with you guys. So until next time, this is Zach, aka Bill's Freak. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.